Hello, everyone, and welcome to the midweek program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the education assistant here at the Arboretum. And today we are sitting in the townhouse garden overlooking a nice little spot that we are fixing to call the Glade. We have a planting back there that was planted just about last year, and it is filling in quite nicely with a bunch of lovely little plants. Today we've got a program for you. Fast fillers. We're going to be talking about all the plants that if you have a hole in your garden or you got a whole new garden that you can plant out and they will fill in the space nice and quickly. As you can see, we've got our Director of Horticulture there, Greg Paige, joining us. Yes, there he is. And Tim Alderton is sat there next to him, our research technician. And they have a whole list of plants. We got woody plants and herbaceous plants to fill in all the spots that you might need to fill in the garden. So it is definitely going to be a wonderful program. Those of you joining us on YouTube today, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I can pass things over to Tim and Greg to tell us about some fast fillers for the garden.
So this is something we get asked about quite a bit, and during one of our brainstorming sessions, we decided to add it to the mix. Tim and I were trying to think of the right angle for this, and I think this is geared towards, you can take a couple different approaches. If you've just moved here, you want to get something in your garden quick and established, these are some things that will definitely do that for you. And I think even if you are an established gardener and you're looking for some things that you may not know about, or you want some
change,
some change, or if you want some thriller with your filler, these are definitely some options for that. So what we did, we divided and conquered. Tim graciously, thankfully, took the herbaceous road, and I took the path of least resistance, and I'm going to talk about some woody stuff. So the thing that I need to be conscious of is getting through these so Tim can get through his.
I'll fill all the extra time,
because he's got some good ones, and I'm hoping to learn some stuff from them too. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. So one of my favorite plants right now in this garden and in previous gardens, there are lots of different Abelia out there, and this is one of my favorites. This is Abelia chinensis. This plant does not disappoint. It gets about 10 to 12 feet tall ultimately.
if you don't prune it.
if you don't prune it, at least that wide, 10 to 12 feet wide. Maybe a little bit wider than that, but they can definitely take pruning. We've got one in the perennial border that we've kept a little bit more diminutive, and you can definitely do that. The thing I like about this is the thing, my mantra, it's going to be my t-shirt that I'm going to make millions of dollars on, is it's got winter, spring, summer, fall interest. It has some big, you can see these are the spent flowers. These will persist and add some winter interest. It's got some decent fall color. It's kind of tardily deciduous. The bark is a little bit peely, so it has nice winter interest. And these will persist and add some winter interest. And then when the flowers emerge in the mid to late summer for us here, they last for a long time. Covered with pollinators.
It's fragrant.
Very fragrant, kind of knock you down fragrant for an Abelia, covered in butterflies and wasps and bees and lots of things. So this is a really, really good one. It's going to grow quickly.
Yeah.
You need a little bit of space for this one.
If you need it smaller, I treat this almost like a buddleia.
You can cut this back
2/3 almost to the ground.
I've worked in gardens where we let this go. I've worked in gardens where every 2 to 3 years we'd cut them back and they would flush out. That's a better avenue if you want to do like a hedge of this, is to cut it back every couple of years, and that kind of keeps it in bounds. So the next one, as I toss these over my shoulder, is a little bit smaller, well-behaved, not much smaller actually. This is Abelia kaleidoscope. This comes from my good friends at Panoramic Farms down outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I love this plant. I love the color. When you get the new growth that comes out, it takes on a reddish orange kind of hue. Also in the fall, it'll turn a little bit brighter in coloration. This one will get about, I don't know how big are the ones by the front
Probably
garden.
4 to 5 feet tall.
4 to 5 feet tall, 5
dense.
to 6, maybe thicker, but it is very dense. This is going to fill in quickly and provide exactly what you're looking for, with some instant impact Flowers in early to mid-summer. The flowers last for a pretty long time. Also attractive to pollinators. There's a lot of these out there. Little Richard is another favorite of mine.
One of the parents of that.
And it's
Or it is the parent of that.
One of the parents of this one, and from a local favorite nursery.
Kern's nursery.
Kern's Nursery, sorry, y'all. But does not disappoint. Two of my favorite abelias for the garden. The other direction I wanted to go in, if I can find it.
Do you have it?
I have it. I had it. Magnolia serendipity.
It might be serendipitous that it's not here yet.
Here she is. I will never miss an opportunity to promote a magnolia to all my friends in the Magnolia Society. I'm contractually obliged to do so. And we've got a really good collection of these here. This is one of our introductions. Bobby Green had a hand in this down in Alabama. This is a plant that I think has multiple uses. Our friends at Panther Creek are growing this as a single stem, which I think is very interesting, and I want to try that here. Tim and I were talking today about pruning our biggest one, which this came off of. It's probably 10 to 12 feet tall.
Yeah, and we planted that in September of 2012.
Yeah, and it's
about a 2 foot tall plant.
For point of reference, it's right outside the Lath House on the left. But just a beautiful tree, covered in flowers in season.
Mm-hmm.
I love these pubescent, coppery colored buds on it. So it's gonna have a ton of flowers on it. It can take sun, it can take a little bit of shade. It's gonna flower better in sun, but I absolutely love these Figo hybrids, these evergreen magnolias. Multiple uses, you can prune them.
I see it as an alternative to privet.
That's a great point. If you're looking for shrub alternatives, my friend Kevin Paris down in Spartanburg has done a lot with these just to see what they would do in those kinds of situations. If they could handle pruning, how they kind of look ultimately doing that. If we have more space, we definitely would do that. And we've done some of this out at our research nursery, and we've talked about planting some in a single stem. But magnolia, winter, spring, summer, fall, love this plant, and will not miss an opportunity to talk about magnolias. Next on my list are Physocoppus opulufolis, the ninebarks, and kind of in the realm of natives. I tend to like the burgundy colored ones, and this is a cultivar called Donna May. This is Little Devil. There's a bigger version of this that I'm assuming is a parent plant.
Diablo.
Diablo. This one is a little bit smaller, but keeps that nice dark color, much smaller leaf. It leaves out, and then it gets, you can see the spent flowers here on the ends, really pretty white flowers that are set off on that dark foliage. This is a true dwarf, 5 to 6 feet tall, if that, and about that wide. Can take sun, can take shade. It's going to flower better and have that darker color in the sun. But I really like these, again, for that winter, spring, summer, fall interest.
They're really versatile soil-wise, too. In the wild, they grow as riparian.
Yep. I've seen these growing in very wet situations.
Yeah.
I've seen them growing in dry. Same for the landscape. I think they do better in the landscape with moist, well-drained soil. Who wouldn't like those situations? But I love this plant because it's got nice bark in the wintertime. It's got this nice foliage, the white flowers that are kind of set off. And it's a pretty tough plant, and it's going to establish pretty quickly and check that box to fill in a nice kind of small area. And another Physocarpus that is called a dwarf, but this one is a little bit bigger. This is Raspberry Lemonade. The new growth is a little bit more kind of limey, chartreusey looking, and with a little bit of red tinged with the buds from the flowers. Again, a nice kind of small white flower that's really attractive. If you look at the foliage of this, it is small, which is where it gets that dwarf moniker. But this one grows bigger than Donna May. Again, can take a variety of situations, wet, dry, sun, shade. Does better in sun. You're going to get more flowers. Lots of different Physocarpus. I recommend them for kind of any situation. There's bigger ones, there's smaller ones, but they're going to fill in pretty quickly. The next one that I've had my eye on here because it's a bit of a monster. Jasminum mesnii. This is gold tip, And I don't know if this is one of the jasminums that wherever the tips hit the ground, it'll
root.
It'll root.
It will.
So this is kind of called a loose climber ground cover.
Yeah.
So it kind of mounds over itself. But that new color is really, really pretty, I think. It really lights up kind of a dark spot at the back edge of Plantsman's Woods near our trial gardens. And I like it because it's very cheery and it's very bright. And it's one of those plants that if you want to fill in an area really quickly, this is something that will do that. I know that these are also used to kind of help hold soil. It'd be something good to kind of mound down a bank, and they are typically used for that. And I think that's the best effect. White flowers?
No. This is a big yellow flower, about 1.5 inches. It's way bigger, say, than the winter jasmine.
Yeah.
But it flowers a little bit after. It flowers probably in March into April for us.
Yep. A great plant to fill in. And if you've got a rough area that you want to cover up, this is the type of plant that you want to do that. And for sake of visiting it here, it's over by our trial beds, the back of Plantsman's Woods. Spiraeas are next. And these are some NC State Tom Rainey's introductions. Again, this is a plant that I love. I had this in my garden in Charlotte, and it may end up in my garden here. This is Spiraea japonica, candy corn. Trademark name?
That's the trademark.
That's
it
trademark.
is like
double play. It's got the letters still, right?
Oh, this has NCSP. I forget it. In season, I remember it. It's like 1. Spiraea 1. Or
Candy corn is the best way to remember it. This always sells out when we have plant sales. This is right between the visitor center and McSwain. You can see the new growth on this where it gets the name candy corn.
And it's not even bright right now.
It's not even bright right now.
February or late February, March is its peak.
When it leaves out after being dormant all winter with nice kind of winter stems for winter interest, it is absolutely electric. It's like it's been plugged into an electrical outlet. We cut ours back, and I think in doing that, it's even brighter. That new growth it's shocking. And I think it's a strong cup of coffee. Some people might not like it, but I love it because it is so bright. This is sterile with the work that Tom has done on these, so this guy is not going to seed around. But I love this for that spring interest. It's definitely one to give a try. One of its siblings with a little bit different look. This is double play doozy. I like this one, but not quite as much. This one has nicer flowers, I think, and you can see new red growth there. A spent flower right there in the middle. To me, that's winter interest. When the leaves drop off of this, those spent flowers will persist, and I think that adds some interest to the winter. I like the color of the stems. And I like that kind of nice raspberry berry colored flower.
This one's known to repeat much better than
flower-wise.
Yes, repeat flower throughout the entire season. Unlike the double play doozy candy corn, candy corn is more or less a one and done in the spring.
It's done now.
But I really don't care for flowered.
No,
that is the candy corn.
Yeah, candy corn, the foliage. This is more the flower.
Yeah.
But just to kind of highlight that Spiraea is a good plant from a fast filler standpoint.
In other parts of the state, in the mountains, these are problematic as weeds. And again, Tom, this is one that is a triploid and is totally sterile.
If you drive up the Blue Ridge Parkway from Asheville, the lower elevations, it's all Spiraea japonica, not this. Spiraea japonica is all along the roadways.
You don't need to worry about this one.
No, this is not going to go anywhere. Next on my list. And again, I'm not going to miss an opportunity to talk about roses. I've done a lot of work in my career with roses, and this is a good example of thriller with your filler. Is you get some bright colors. This is Rosa Rad Treasure, Tahitian Treasure. It's a grandiflora rose, so you're going to get that big grouping of flowers, not a single flower. And this thing is as close to a no maintenance rose as you can get.
I planted this in 2011. I've never had to spray them, and they've always. The leaves are disease free pretty much.
For a rose to look this good in the middle of September, that's a huge testament to this plant's disease hardiness. You can deadhead this, and you'll get more flowers, obviously, but don't have to spray. You'll get a little bit of, I see some rose slug damage on here. That's not a big deal. This is not immune to rose rosette disease. Most roses won't get that. My viewpoint on roses is enjoy them while they're healthy. And
they're fast growing, and they fill back in when you replace them.
They are. And this one is close to the Lath house. for point of reference. It's been flowering its head off all summer long. I made a point to deadhead it last year. I haven't touched it once this year. It's taking care of itself, which is a good thing. Will fill in really quickly and give you some pretty carefree flowers that you can bring inside. Tiny bit of fragrance, not much. This one is bred for that disease resistant, but a great one to fill in quickly. I would be remiss if I didn't have a loropetalum in here. A good plant for this part of the South, and something that's definitely going to fill in really, really quickly. There are shapes and sizes and colors and flower colors for any flavor that you like. This is one that I particularly like. I like the green ones, and I like the ones that flower white. And this one is Jazz Hands Dwarf White. This is a series of loropetalum. Supposed to be dwarf. This one is probably almost 10 feet tall. Considering that loropetalum can get fairly big and large, where it's native to, this is a little more well-behaved. And this is also a plant that can take a certain degree of pruning. But early spring, covered in flowers. It's common. One of the common names is fringe flower. It's related to witch hazels, so the flower is very similar. Some of them are fragrant. I cannot recall if
I don't know if this one is or not either.
I don't think it is, but it's covered with very long petaled flowers in the spring for a very long time. It's one of my favorites. 8 to 10 feet tall, about as wide, kind of a nice vase-shaped one. Sun, shade, better flowers in the sun. And another, to me, that's kind of a thriller this time of the year, Calocarpa americana. This is Welch's pink, and this is our native Calocarpa. This is a plant that whenever I go on collecting trips and we see it in the wild, we go crazy and we collect a lot of it, and then we put the seeds in the greenhouse and they all come up, and then you have too much. It's a really tough plant. It's easy to grow. It fills in incredibly fast. This one is along the Weeping Walk. This pretty branch was poking out at eye level, so I decided to use it for the sample. But you can see the berries that are just now coloring up. Very uncharacteristic. This is much more kind of chartreusey, almost purple. And this one was selected obviously for that nice Welch's, I'm assuming, grape juice color. I don't know, that might be
forget, it's
trademarks.
named after somebody.
It's named after the guy who discovered it, I think.
I like that story better.
Yeah, I like the grape juice story better, honestly, but we can take whatever.
Yeah.
Birds adore these.
But yes, birds love this plant. It's one of those plants that doesn't look like much most of the year, but this time of the year when you're wanting some of that color, here you go. But this thing fills in incredibly fast, and you get this nice native with wildlife interest and these pretty colors. I pruned this and immediately put it in water, and it's already starting to wilt. So people ask me, can you bring this indoors? You can, but it's not going to
take all the leaves off.
Take the leaves off.
The fruit instead.
Yeah, it's not gonna last long, and the berries will eventually drop off. But I love the color of this one, and there's lots of them out there. Another plant that's synonymous, that might be the wrong word. I'm not going to say ubiquitous because I get dinged for using that way too much. This is a very common plant in the South, and this is Nandina domestica. This is a newer cultivar called lemon lime. I believe this one is sterile, so it's not going to spread around like the typical ones do, but it has this nice kind of chartreusey yellow color that really lights up a landscape. Nandina are notoriously tough. They can take dry, heavy soil. They grow in good garden soil. But I like this one because it fills in quickly and it adds a different color to the Nandina color wheel with that really bright yellow chartreusey green color. Don't have to do much to it. They are fairly dense, fills in pretty quickly, and grows fast once it gets in the ground. But a good, tough plant for southern landscapes. And of the Nandinas, it's one of my favorites. I like that bright color. And my last one, leaving you time for the good stuff. This is a plant that I'm growing to love here. And I don't know why I did not have this in Charlotte, because it grows very, very easily. This is Pittosporum variegatum. Kind of a nice mounded form, grows. I wouldn't say it's fast, but it fills in really, really good. It definitely has a spot in the landscape. This is in is it the mixed border?
It's also straight ahead too.
Oh, yeah, up against
in the adjacent bed.
Medium to fast growing, 4 to 5 feet tall, wider than tall, very, very dense, adds a lot of bright color. a good substitute for boxwoods and other things, a good substitute for what we talked about earlier. The
privets.
Privets. My brain is mush at the end of the day. A good substitute for privets.
Wonderfully fragrant flowers.
Fragrant flowers that just knock you down. Very, very easy to grow. And this is something that I'm looking to put in my own landscape.
I like to use this as a cut in arrangements.
Yep. We will stick this on occasion in the winter planters in the white garden in the wintertime because it keeps that color all season long. So that's fast and furious, the woody stuff, and I left you time for the good
I have
stuff.
to even go faster, I think. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about herbaceous stuff, and I'm not going to talk about annuals per se, but annuals are excellent for that initial filler to keep the weeds out of your landscape. Nothing else, put them in between things, and they will help to alleviate some of your early starts in a landscape, which can be somewhat problematic with weeds. But these perennials is what I'm going to mostly talk about, and they will persist a bit longer, though. So we're going to get started, and I'm doing mine by plant family, alphabetically. Which is a problem I have. So we're going to start with Asteraceae, and my first plant in that is also alphabetical to what I selected anyway. So, and we have Chrysogonum virginianum Pierre, which is, I'm going to show these in a PowerPoint, and let's see if, for the most part, but then I do also have some friends too that I brought along that if I have time, I'll throw them in now and again. So we got Chrysogonum virginianum Pierre, which is a great ground cover. It's green and gold. It's a native. It only gets like 3 to 6 inches tall, starts flowering as early as late February and into March. And it'll flower sporadically throughout the rest of the season. So this is one of those ones that it's a great one, again, for that difficult place to fill in a shade garden where we all have trouble finding the right plant to fill in. So I'm hoping you're seeing is my nice yellow little daisies there. There's several different cultivars. There's one, it's an Echo something or other. I'm blanking on the name, but it's even more vigorous than Pierre. We have it in a few other spots in the garden, but Chrysogonum virgatum, which is, like I said, a great part shade to shade, even sun plant as a ground cover. So from there, we're going to do another native, and it's another great one for part shade, even to sun. In the sun, it will. I found out it can burn when we have hot, dry weather, but Erigeron pulchellus meadow muffin, it can fill in. I have this just outside the white garden. It's in the new border, or adjacent to the perennial border. It did burn a few weeks ago, but up until that point, it was solid. You had these beautiful rosettes. But the great thing about it is starting in March and into May, you get flower stalks about 12 to 15 inches tall over top this of just some pastel pink to lavender colored flowers, little daisies. And it's one of the flea banes. And it's just a versatile plant. You'll find Erigeron pulchellus growing throughout the state in the wild too. So it's just a great little one, fast growing, fast filler for that difficult spot. Whether, like I said, from probably half shade to moist full sun. For the advertisement, if the website were up, you were probably seeing a beautiful picture of Gaillardia estivalis, glitz and glamour, but I had to include this one in this list as well. It's one of my favorites. It's a plant you plant and step back because it will take up any space it can find in the sun. The glitz and glamour is a yellow form of estivalis, and we have planted some in a few spots, actually not terribly far from here, put like 5 plants in, and in a 5-foot square area, and now I have a 25-foot square area of glitz and glamour surrounding all of its neighbors, preventing any weed from growing. But it doesn't flower for very long, though. It only starts in May and goes till frost. So you just have to catch it on one of those few days that it's in blossom.
The spent flowers are nice, too.
It is.
Nice
it doesn't sell so much because it's self-incompatible, this species of Gaillardia. So you don't expect seedlings from this, but unlike every other gaillardia, it spreads by suckers. So it's easy to divide and share and move about. Like I said, don't collect the seed and expect the seed to germinate unless you have other friends of the same species, which I do have some in the garden, but I don't have them close enough to procreate. So I had a couple pictures. So the next picture is a close-up of the Glitz and Glamour with a beautiful bumblebee on it. So the next one after that is Estivalis variety Winkleri, which Winkleri can range from white to pink to purple. And so I have a picture of Grape Sensation here, which is unlike any other gaillardia you're going to see. But much like Estivalis, Glitz and Glamour, it will spread if it's happy. Not as vigorously, which might be a good thing, but it is a great one to fill in those difficult spots. And it will take full blazing sun with the species in general. It's from Texas. It's actually, Winkleri is an endemic to just a few locations in Texas. So you get these strange colors of purple, like I said, pink, and or white. And the last picture I have of Estivalis is a white form that we've had for decades here in the garden, and is actually my favorite of the colors of the Estivalis forms that we have. In this form, the actual florets in the center of the flower can actually be either yellow or purple. In this case, the white form we have has a purple central florets, disc flowers, with the ray flowers being white on this one. And that is my personal favorite. Again, they are a little bit less vigorous, though still vigorous enough to fill in some spots. I had given some of these to some relatives out at the coast years ago, and they planted them among their knockout roses. They ended up having to move the knockout roses because they were getting overwhelmed. So
that's saying something.
So yeah. So the next plant is one more for its foliage, though the flowers or inflorescence on it are something you may go to the grocery store and buy. I'm showing you Cynara cardunculus scalemus group green globe, which is your artichoke. I grow another wild species of Cynara here, Cynara syriacus, which has become one of my favorites. But the foliage is why I really like this. For our cool seasons here, bridge seasons, actually, for the most part, the artichokes in the wild form of Cynara syriacus for us go dormant in the summer. In cooler climates, they will actively stay growing. But the foliage is great in our border, in the perennial border, and as well as in the Lawrence border here and a few other locations we've had it over the years through the cool months of the year. It will get frozen back if we have terribly cold weather, but it quickly fills back in. You will get a vase-shaped silver thistle foliage up to 3 feet by 4 or 5 feet wide, which is spectacular throughout the cool months of the year. And that's the reason I grow this plant. But then it will bolt in the spring and flower, and you can, and depending if it's the artichokes, we get 3 to 4 feet tall, or the wild type syriacus, which get 6 to 8 feet tall. Then you get a purple thistle on there, and they're just spectacular when they are in blossom too. So ending out the season, though, that was a bridge season one, but coming into flower just now in the garden a little bit is Symphyotrichum oblongifolium October skies. You know that is an aster. It's one of our native species. I grow a couple different oblongifoliums here in the garden, and they've been great. These are just a few of the countless Asteraceae that are great fillers for your landscape, because Asteraceae is actually the largest of the dicot families of plants, so the ones that come with 2 seed leaves. So continuing on through dicots, another favorite of mine is one we actually have in our color trials this year, and I was making note of this in a pre-recorded thing that you'll see later on, that this is one we've been growing in the perennial border now for 5 or 6 years too. Actually not 5 or 6 years, about 4 years. It's Heliotropium with the catchy name WNHPAULAV, the trade name of Augusta lavender. This is a flowering powerhouse here. I mean, it starts in, I've seen it at Plant Delight's nursery flowering as early as late March. But for me here, typically in April, I can expect it to be in flower, and it's still going. It will go up till frost. I like this better than another heliotropium that we have in the garden, Heliotropium implexicale, which tends to like to self-sow everywhere. It's a little taller, though. That is, the hybrid is a little bit taller, but it is much better behaved in that it doesn't come up where I don't want it. But either way, it is a great pollinator plant. You will find all kinds of honeybees and bumblebees and other bees, small butterflies adore them. But that's a great one for the full sun in a relatively dry site. It will be happy as a clam, though it will take evenly moist soil, just as long as it gets sun. Going to something totally different is an African violet relative, or Gesneriad, Hemiboea subicalis variety Jiangziensis, Jiangzi bells. This is one that Mark collected in China several years ago now, and if you come into our lath house, it has eaten up, it has surrounded some of its neighbors.
It's a little thuggish.
It is a little thuggish. So if you need something to fill in an evenly moist, shady location, this one could be a great option. It's just coming into flower now, but the foliage is there starting in April. It starts to grow. Actually have a plant down here which I can illustrate. One of the reasons it does spread so well, it has these stolons. And let's see, I did not pop this out of the pot, but I have a feeling this might actually show you a little bit better. These runners go everywhere horizontally. Individual plants in the lath house now that were planted about this size within the last 4 years or so are now 8-foot patches. So, and we've taken divisions from those as well. So great plant. It's a really cool when in flower as well. The flowers are kind of creamy white with freckles on them, and they're tubular. It's just a cool plant. And you don't think of African violet relatives as being thugs, or that is good filler plants, but they can be. And I have another one here that is not in the PowerPoint. This is a Syningia. This is a Syningia Arkansas bells. And this one, it's not as thuggish as the Hemiboea, but this is one for the sun. This will grow in evenly moist soil. It's a relatively dry soil in full sun, no problem. One of its parents is Syningia tubiflora, which likes to spread by little potato-like tubers. And it's easy to maintain, but this gets about 2.5, 3 feet tall, starts flowering for us in probably late May, and it's still flowering today, though not as heavily as it does in May and June. It's just a really showstopper as far as I'm concerned, and one that can fill in some gaps, though not be overrun the whole place. So, and it's lightly fragrant, mostly in the evening, because tubiflora is a fragrant species. Its other parent is not fragrant, and I think it's salvia, which is another one we have in our border. So anyways, jumping on to, I guess I'm making good time here. My next family is the Lamiaceae, which is the mint family, and we don't have many plants in that family. Actually, we have a lot. And the first picture I think I have in the PowerPoint is of one Buddleia loricata, which is a favorite of mine. You're actually seeing the flowers. The plant is a silver evergreen shrub. Don't grow it for its flowers, actually. Grow it for its foliage. Unlike a lot of your other Buddleias, Buddleias in general are a great fast filler. They're great for that, but this is one of my favorites. It's not going to become a weed like some of the ones, the Vidii types can sometimes be in the mountains. You don't need to worry about that at all. It is a South African species, and it flowers late winter, early spring, white flowers against silver green foliage. But that silver green foliage is evergreen for us here. The undersides are totally white. I talk about this plant. I love it for using in arrangements. I use it in our wreath workshop that we do in December, because it dries with the white showing. If you flop it down, you see the undersides. It's a great filler material, but it is probably a 4 to 6 foot tall plant, but it quickly fills into that, and it doesn't get much bigger than that for us, though it can be up to 6 feet maybe in our landscape over long term. It's really easy going, does not need any particular soil, just so it's not wet. So going through more in the mint family, that would include the lantanas, and I've included one here. Star Landing is a great one, which is a good perennial for us here in Zone 7B, 8A now. The lantanas enjoy our hot summers, and Star Landing is great because it's just a saturated orange inflorescence one. And it's not an enormous growing one like Miss Huff, which can get 6 feet tall if it's happy. Star Landing is more like a 3-footer. So it's manageable. It's a great filler plant, but it's not an unmanageable one, which can take over your landscape as well.
Good for butterflies and such.
It is. So yes, I have a close-up, I think, of Star Landing for another picture there. So you can see the intensity of the color as it ages. So then we jump into a group that I talked about a few weeks or a month or so, or 2 months ago maybe, the salvias, which if you want to know more about salvias, I'm just going to barely touch on them here because I did a whole hour on those, and I think it was in June maybe, or was it July, somewhere in there.
Time makes no sense.
It makes no sense anymore.
You know it's September right now?
It is.
Outrageous.
So,
I can't even.
But I do have a few pictures of some salvias which are great to fill in and to start that landscape and get it going. One of my favorites, as I've talked about many times, is Salvia farinacea Augusta Dolberg, which is a nice white mealy cup sage. It started flowering in our border here in late March, early April, and it's still flowering today, and it will go till frost. It can use a haircut just to freshen up if you have time through the summer months, but it is a great one. You can start from a small 3-inch pot in the spring, plant it, and it'll fill into a 2 foot tall by probably a 2 foot plant if you give it the space in no time whatsoever. It's a little bit more vigorous than a lot of the bedding salvias, farinaceas that you see. So it's just a good one. It will self-sow a little bit as well, so it's not going to be weedy, but you will find it to come up true from seed as long as you're not growing other salvia farinaceas with it. And it's just a great filler in that sense. So that's for the sun. I included another one here for the shade, Salvia glaberescens, which elk yellow purple, which is a shade tolerant late summer fall flowering salvia. And we had this in Asian Valley, and we put a patch of like a half a dozen plants in, but weren't that big. It's now about a 10-foot patch. So this is a fast filler in a less than hospitable place typically. I mean, it doesn't want dense shade, but light to shade to almost part sun, it is happy as a clam and will reward you with creamy yellow with purple highlights, more or less, to the flowers in late summer and then the fall. And it only gets about 1 foot to 15 inches tall, but it will get much wider if it's happy and you give it the space. So I do have another of the dryland sages as the next plant on here, Salvia gregii no, let's see. I'm not even trying to spit out its real name. And Mirage Rose Bicolor, which was actually in our recent plant sale. So some of you may be planting this one as we speak, as pickup for the plant sale has started today and will continue for the next couple days. Several of you may have gotten some of those plants, but I do have some other salvias, which I know that a few weeks ago, this is one that Dennis highlighted. This is Salvia Big Blue, which is not its real name. It has a terrible real name, and the trade name is Big Blue. But this is a Salvia farinacea hybrid. This is a bit larger growing than the Salvia farinacea Augusta Dolberg that I showed you. This gets about 3 to 4 feet tall. So, but really good bloomer. And again, salvias, there's so many of them that you can choose from, and those are just a handful of them, being that there's over 900 species, and not all of them are fast fillers, but there's a bunch that we can grow here that are. Okay, we're getting out of the Lamiaceae now, the mint family, and we're going to go to the Lythraceae. So that I'm only representing in the PowerPoint with one plant, but so it's a Kufia, and it's one Melvia, I guess, Kufia Melvia David Verti, which has been around for a long time. I have this actually planted in the perennial border right now, and it is just on fire and has been since I planted it this spring. And this is one that's been fairly reliable as a perennial too, that we haven't had it in the border for a long time. I replanted it this spring and expect it to be totally fine this winter. It's about 2.5, 3 feet tall at this point, and it has these cigar-like flowers, as they call these cigar plants. And it has since I planted it, and it will continue till frost, and then it will resprout in the spring, and probably about May, continue to flower again. It's a good hummingbird plant, and it will take well-drained soils and full sun and to be happy. A larger cousin of it, I have actually, if I can get it out of my bouquet here, is Salvia microphylla. No, micropetala, I'm sorry, micropetala. And this one gets a bit larger, but it doesn't start flowering until late in the season, as it is just starting in the border right now. Again, with these yellow and orange flowers, but this gets about 3 to 4 feet tall, easy, if not 5 sometimes. But the foliage is nice throughout the season, and then, like I said, you're rewarded with late season flowers, which is perfect timing for the migration of the hummingbirds coming down from further north through the this fall. So they'll get these with the reward of those being in flower, but a little bit different, but they are fast growing. You can plant one of these in the spring, and you can have a 3 foot tall plant by the end of summer that will be a couple feet wide and fill in that gap you need to fill in with. So that's just another one there. So my next group of plants are the Malvaceae, or the Mallow family, the hibiscus family, hollyhock family, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm starting with a butylon, which I actually have a picture of a butylon megapotamicum, little imp there, which is out near the necessary and has been, I've had it out there probably for more than 10 years. We had to cut it back this year, whenever with the construction or destruction going on around the necessary, but it is already back up to like 3 or 4 feet tall and filling back in. That is probably one of the hardiest ones, Megapotamicum little imp. But there's other ones that are some of my favorites I have in here. I have actually 3 in my bouquet here, and they're very different from Megapotamicum little imp. I have this orange one here, which is one we got from the Atlanta Botanic Garden called Traffic Island, which I'm assuming means that they had it growing in a traffic island. And in Atlanta, which is a terribly mild climate, isn't it? It's worse than here in the summer. Gross. So we have this actually growing. I have it in the perennial border. I have it out at the street, which it has not gotten a drop of water out at the street this summer, and it's still flowering. Hence going with that traffic island effect. We also have a couple plants in our mixed border, which are now about 5 or 6 feet tall, only after 2 years. So talk about a fast filler. These often, if we have mild winters, won't die to the ground. If we have a hard winter, they will get killed to the ground, but recover into a multi-foot tall shrub or subshrub throughout the season. The next one I have here is one I acquired on a trip a couple years ago to Washington. I got this one. This is a selection that Dan Hinckley has. It's from Dan's garden in Wyncliffe, and this is Wyncliffe White, which I have in our white garden. And the plants in the white garden after 2 years now are about 5 to 6 feet tall. Beautiful, clear white blossoms, and I don't get that on any of the other butylons that we have. And then I have a pink one here, which is Sink Pink, which is from outside of Dan Hinckley's kitchen window. and it's a very large flowered, clear pink Abutilon. And again, it's becoming about a 4 to 5 foot tall specimen in our perennial border. So those are some favorites of mine of the Abutilons. So now we're going to jump over to the Abutilons' cousins, which you may be a little more familiar with, are some of the hibiscus. And I have a few of them included in the PowerPoint. And I believe my first one may be a hibiscus cherry cheesecake.
Delicious.
Which is one of the Summerific series, which it's actually a fairly old one now. I don't know if it's actually still available. I hope it is. But it's been one we've had doing quite well. It was in our trials several years ago, and it has been engulfed into the surrounding landscape, which after I took over that portion of the garden from the trials. And so they've done spectacularly well there. This a wonderful picture of them there. But the hibiscus, any of the hibiscus, if you get them in the right spot, they can go from a small plant of just a foot or so in 1 year to a 3 to 4, sometimes even 6 foot sub-shrub. Actually, they're herbaceous perennials, most of the ones we were growing here, just in one season. So if you pick the right variety, you can fill in a gap pretty quickly. They will take that tough spot. We are growing them in near our new berms in some of the drainage areas, which are next to swamps, and as they are swamp mallows or rose mallows, in the wild state that you will see them. So they are great for that wet spot, but they can take average to moist soils as well, so no problem. After that, I have a hybrid one, Hibiscus Hapa Red, which I think is from the National Arboretum, if I remember right. But you'll sometimes see it as Big Hit. It's an Asian hybrid. Hibiscus. It doesn't set seed for us, but it can get 6 to 8 feet tall in one season. Easy, but it'll flower off and on the entire season. It's just a really good bloomer. I think it's probably a parametabolous hybrid, without having to dig into any further information on that one. But again, a great one to fill in that gap in your border. And my next one is another relative from the Malvaceae, and you'll see it in its name. This is Malvaviscus arboreus variety Drummondii. We grow this in the perennial border. It actually self-sows a little bit. This is actually a southeast native. It comes up as far as, I believe, down around Wilmington. If not, it's into South Carolina, but it goes down around the Gulf Coast and into northern Mexico, and there's some different forms that you get there. But it's a hummingbird plant. The flowers never totally open on them. The petals stay kind of wrapped up, and the stamen sticks up out of it, or actually the gymnogynophore, the stamen and pistil. So hummingbirds come, they pollinate it, they rub the pollen onto their head as they go there, and then they brush up against the female parts of the flower. It's a really cool one. You can eat the seed pods of them. You can eat the flowers of them. So it's one you can use in your salad too, whenever it fills in and you need to do some pruning. They're very quick to grow from cuttings, so they're easy to propagate as well if you need to fill in a few more spots with additional ones, and they will grow from seed as well. So that finishes up my dicots but that's just a sampling of the dicots. And I'm going to quickly, hopefully, get a few monocots here. So we go back to the letter A for the families, and we're in the Araceae now. And if you really want something big that grows quickly, I have a Colocasia gigantea Thailand giant, which we can plant here from a 3-inch pot in May, and you can have a 6 to 8 foot tall plant that has leaves that are 4 by 5 foot on them by fall. Talk about a fast filler. That is one of my favorites. And then we also have their cousins, the Esculentas, which are the taros. And I have a selection of that showing there. And I think I have a wilting leaf probably here. This is one. This is, oh darn, this is Waikiki. right here, which is a newer one. But anyways, there are lots of elephant ears that we can grow here in the hot southeast, and they will grow as perennials, and they are wonderful for filling that gap and giving you the tropical look as well at the same time. Going on to something else in the same as a monocot, we're going to jump into the Comamelidaceae. So your spiderwort family, my favorites of those are the Tradescantia pallidas, which we have our native Tradescants. This is to me, can be a little bit weedy. Pallidas are some of the tropical ones, but I grow those for their foliage. And you think of the purple forms, and I think I have a picture from the perennial border here just yesterday. And the pallida has been in the border for several years, and we have it in other parts of the garden for even longer. I'm finding these are hardier than one would expect. My brother actually has this growing outside his house in Western Pennsylvania, and it has survived, not as vigorously as they do here, but they do survive up there even to fill in. And you can plant these as annuals. I laugh when they are planted in front of developments around here because they rip them out every fall and they or that is the caretakers replant them every spring and get to.
They treat them as an annual.
They treat them as an annual, though they are fully hardy for us. So. Behind us, actually, and you'll see a picture of our next plant, which is a carex. It's in the bed. I can see it from here. Is carex ETCRX01, better known as feather falls, which is one of my favorite carex. It's some of the hybrid carex that have done excellent for us. The rabbits have not munched these down to nothing like my some of the other Everillo series, which are one of the parent species of this one. But these are the Everillo on steroids, more or less, the fall series. And I'm really liking those. They will take sunshade, wet, dry. I have them out at the street and they get no water. I have them almost growing in a bog situation over here, and they grow equally well.
Containers, whatever.
And whatever. I'm really like the fall series. There's feather falls. There's, darn, I'm blanking on the other. We had one in our plant sale too, which was a new one, Moon Falls. Yep. And it's a more compact version of feather falls from what I understand. We're going to jump to the next one. I'm running out of time. This is one for the shade though, and I really like Carex scaposa. It flowers actually, and it flowers both in the spring and fall, and they're pink. And who thinks of growing Carex for its flowers? But you grow scaposa for its flowers. The blades of the leaves are also quite wide, and it gives a totally different look, but it'll grow in full shade to part sun and be happy as a clam. I really love that plant. And I'm just going to quickly just mention ornamental grasses. We have, click to our next slide here. We have Cordaderia blue bayou. So that's your traditional pampas grass. The next slide is going to be muley grass, the Muhlenbergia capillaris. And then some of my favorites, the next slide you will see is one I have in the perennial border. It's just a short growing grass, Pennisetum black stockings. It only gets to about 10 feet tall in one season. And it doesn't flower. It's grown for its foliage. I hate to say it, in the winter it is ugly as a dog, as bad as dirty socks. Yep. But grow it for the summer. And the next one there is Pennisetum purpureum, not a prince, which you will see. It's not as intense of a dark color as black stockings, but it has been around, and I have kept that one going for well over a decade in the garden, and it has done great. But again, the Pennisetum purpureums tend to be winter dogs. I will say that. Don't grow them for winter interest. They're winter messes. Then we're going to quickly, in the last 2 minutes, get into the Agaveaceae, which my favorite agave is the Avadifolias. And so I have to show that. Perfect plant. It's a solitary growing agave. It will quickly fill out, because that picture is of a plant that we planted as a quart in 2019. And I moved it last fall. It is now 4 feet wide and about 3 feet tall. So beautiful specimen. I love Avadifolia in that it doesn't sucker everywhere. It is a solitary species. We're going to jump to the next plant, which is a cousin of the agaves. It's a half agave. It's a mangave. I'm finding more and more these are actually hardy. This is mangave kaleidoscope, which is a variegated one. I had in pots for years, and I finally planted it out last year, and it persisted no problem through last winter. I don't think it's gonna, it'll melt back each winter, but it will come back up. And there's another mangave here, mangave Mission to Mars. This is a non-suckering one, and it surprised me. I did not expect this to survive last winter. It was unscathed through the winter. It got, I mean, I take it back. It did have a little bit of burn on some of the outer leaves, but it kept on going the whole season. It actually gives you some purple tones, and it gets quite large, about 3 feet wide and about 3 feet tall. So, and my last group of plants are the gingers. So Zingiberaceae, my Z's, and we're gonna end with that. I have a Dr. Moy. Hedychium Dr. Moy is just a favorite. Any of the hedychiums are wonderful to fill in a gap. I have one here in a bouquet, and it is Hedychium Molten Gold. It's a new one for me. I planted this last year for something a little more compact, because so many of the hedychiums get quite tall at 4 to 6 feet tall, sometimes 7. This one's topping out at about 3 feet, and it's been a tight clumper and it's only about 2 feet wide at the base. After a year, it has not gone everywhere, but this is a new one for me, and I'm really liking it. But it's been a late bloomer, really nice foliage plant though too. So those are some of my top picks for quick what was it? Fast fillers. So I had to go through that fast fillers very quickly. So
you blazed.
So
that.
anyways,
That was amazing.
That is just a sampling. So many perennials that you can fill in with. So.
And I just want to say that time is infinite, so we have as much of it as we can chill out for a little bit. I love the energy, Tim. That was fantastic.
That was fast.
We did have a handful of questions. Let's get started with those. So Jane says, are there any native abelias?
No.
No.
They're all Asian.
They're all Asian. I did do a quick little Google search while we were doing that, and there are some that are native to southern North America.
Oh, Mexico.
Yeah.
You get into Mexico.
Sure.
Is it Floribunda, I think?
Okay.
Which is a really pretty one we can't grow.
Yeah.
That sounds about
It has
right.
these purple, deep pink to purple flowers. I wish we could grow it, but it
For
won't.
sure.
It's cloud forest.
Okay. Sun or shade on the abelia?
They flower better in the sun, but they can take a fair amount of shade also. If you're just growing them for the foliage or just to fill in a spot, they can take a certain amount of shade. If you've got them established and shade kind of gets up around them, I think they have more flowers on them. But if you want the flowers, they need to be in more of a sunny situation.
Okay, Marilyn wants to know about the fall color on the 9-bark cultivars that you showed off. She says that she has Amber Jubilee, and that one gets great fall color.
They typically have really nice fall color. The burgundy ones, the foliage brightens to oranges and yellows in some cases. The green leaf ones, I think, provide a little bit more of the fall color aspect.
Cool.
But they do have good fall color, very consistent.
So is the jasmine that you showed fragrant?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not that one. The yellow ones tend not to be overly fragrant. Mesnea may have a tiny bit, but it's not strong like the white ones.
The white ones are much more fragrant. I like you're getting that plant for that new growth color, that chartreuse yellow.
Okie dokie. Is the spirea candy corn also sterile like the double play doozy?
Yes, that's not gonna wander around and do less than kind things.
Sure, but you'll still get pollinators all over the thing. They really adore it.
It's a great landscape plant.
Honestly,
the amount of bang for your buck.
I wouldn't care if it flowered, to tell you the truth. I like the foliage on it. The pink takes away from it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's kind of. It's a bit too much, but that's a plant that I want back in my new garden.
Great. Jane wants to know if the rose you said you had, the rose you showed had a lot of disease resistant. Mm-hmm. Is it resistant to the rose rosette specifically?
There are no roses resistant to that. There's a lot of work being done on that. You can't prevent it because it's spread by an insect that spreads it around. You can try really hard to keep your garden clean, and when you see it, prune it out. But eventually, it's going to spread through the entire through the entire plants. I'm of the mindset that I don't want a garden without roses, so we're going to kind of treat them as long-lived perennials. Mm-hmm. And when they fade out, we'll try some other ones. And also encourage you to you can add some of these perennials that we talked about in with your rose garden. which we've
You
done
need a
here.
fast filler to fill in with that one that you've had to take out with Rose Rosette.
Yes, definitely.
No kidding. Okay, so the Gaillardias
Yeah.
you showed. Sometimes I like to get fancy with my double L's together. Gaillardia.
You do the ya sound.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like the Lamborghini. Come on now. Anyway, do the Gaillardias do well if you don't have full blazing sun? They want to know if 5 to 6 hours of sun, is that enough?
The more the better. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Texas plant. It's from the grasslands. It's not from a forested area.
It likes the sun and it likes the heat.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Sandy wants to know the Cynara. It's no longer a cardoon. Did they revise it?
Cardoon is a common name for some of the Cynaras.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Yeah.
it is a cardoon.
It's Cynara cardunculus or Scalemus. Anyway, I have to look.
okay.
Yeah, I don't think they changed. It's Cynara cardunculus, and the Scalemus group is the artichokes.
Cardoon is like a common name.
Yeah, cardoon is
Cool.
a common name, but cardunculus is the species.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Awesome. And then Paul wants to know if the pittosporums, so do the pittosporums there, I assume here, have issues with cerospora and root rot?
I've not noticed any of that. That's not to say it's not a problem. Where we have both of ours planted, they're kind of different situations. The one on the fence that we can see from here is in pretty hot, exposed sun through most of the day, and it's up a little bit high, so it gets good drainage. The one in the border is in kind of a low spot underneath the arbor.
That's dry, actually.
It's dry.
It's very
It's dry through there, but it's not to say that they don't experience that.
I mean, that species is heterophyllus is really versatile, I think.
Yeah.
The tuberas, I think, are a bit more finicky.
Yeah.
And that might be what he's thinking
Yep.
about.
Cool. Well, that is all of the questions that we had for today, as well as all of the time. That was awesome. That was a truly great presentation. Like, we're looking for plants that'll fill up a space. Like, we got options, apparently.
And
found a
I
couple. didn't
even get onto the ferns
Oh,
for
yeah.
shade.
No
So it's
kidding.
like,
That's another talk.
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it is fast filling ferns. Man, we just
That's
keep going
might
with
not
the
be big
alliteration.
enough. But that's,
Just fantastic ferns.
Yeah,
'Cause there's
Yeah,
lots
fantastic ferns.
There's
That's a great
lots of
word.
No
opportunity
kidding.
for ferns.
great. Well, thank you so much for pulling together this presentation. It was absolutely delightful.
Always a
Thank
pleasure.
you, everybody, for joining us today on the midweek program. We will be back next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We will have Denny Werner, the gentleman who's bred all the fancy redbuds that you're all so excited about. He will be having a garden conversation with our curator, Dennis. So we hope we will see you all next week. Y'all take care.